Hello, and a huge welcome to the channel. If you're looking for cross-dressing stories that are emotional, intriguing, and truly empowering, you've come to the right place. You lost, Tatum, this Halloween. You're going as a girl. The words hung in the air like stale smoke. 10 seconds ago, I was on top of the world. Now, I was staring at the 5 cards spread out on the sticky wooden surface of Derek's dining table, feeling like the floor had just dissolved beneath my feet. Let me back up. Just 10 seconds. I need you to understand how confident I was. We were in Derek's apartment in downtown Chicago. It was raining outside. That cold, miserable October rain that slaps against the windows. But inside, it was warm. The room smelled like pepperoni pizza, cheap beer, and that specific, dusty scent of an apartment that needs to be aired out. I held my cards tight against my chest. 2 kings. On the table, the flop showed another king and 2 tens, a full house, the kind of hand you pray for, the kind of hand you bet your car on. I looked at Derek. He was grinning. That stupid, lopsided grin he gets when he's bluffing. He was spinning a red poker chip between his knuckles, click, click, click. It was annoying. All in, I said, but my voice didn't shake. I pushed my pile of chips into the center. Read 'em and weep, buddy. I slammed my cards down. Kings full of tens. Pay up! I reached for the pot. My hands were already curling around the messy pile of cash and plastic chips. I could feel the adrenaline, that electric buzz in my fingertips. I loved winning. God, I loved it. Then Derek laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was a deep, belly laugh. Oh, Tatum, he said, shaking his head. You poor, sweet idiot. He flipped his cards over, one by one. Slap, slap. 4 5s, with the 5 on the turn that I had completely ignored. 4 of a kind. My hand froze halfway to the money. My stomach did a physical flip, like I was on a roller coaster that just dropped 70 feet. The heat rushed up my neck instantly. I could feel my ears burning. No, I muttered. No way. Way! Derek crowed, sweeping the pile toward him with both arms. I'll take the cash, but... We had a side bet. Remember the wild card rule? I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. That was a joke. Derek! We were just talking trash. Derek leaned forward. The fluorescent light from the kitchen caught his eyes. He looked serious, deadly serious. I don't joke about the wild card. Tatum, you said, and I quote, if I lose this hand, I'll do whatever humiliating thing you can think of for the Halloween party. I sank back into my chair. The vinyl squeaked under my weight. I grabbed my beer bottle, just to have something to hold, peeling the wet label with my thumb. Okay, fine. I'll wear an embarrassing costume. I'll go as a giant hot dog, or a baby, whatever. Derek shook his head slowly. No hot dogs, no babies. He pointed a finger right at my chest. You lost, Tatum, this Halloween. You're going as a girl. I blinked. My brain refused to process it. What? A girl, Derek repeated, enunciating every letter. Full drag, dress, heels, makeup, wig, the works, and you have to stay in character all night. No! I stood up, the chair screeching against the floor. Absolutely not. No way in hell. I'm not doing that. You made the bet, Derek shouted, standing up too. I'm not walking into a party with all our coworkers looking like a freak, I yelled back. My heart was hammering against my ribs. It wasn't just anger. It was panic. Genuine, cold panic. Imagine me. 6 feet tall. Shoulders like a linebacker, okay? Maybe not a linebacker, but I go to the gym. I have a jawline. I have stubble. The idea of me in a dress wasn't just funny. It was grotesque. It was wrong. You're welching on a bet, Derek challenged. Wow, I didn't peg you for a coward. I'm not a coward. I just have dignity. Dignity is for winners. A soft voice said from the doorway. We both froze. Megan was leaning against the doorframe of the bedroom, Derek's girlfriend. She was holding a mug of tea, wearing oversized sweatpants and a tank top. She looked tired, but amused. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, locked onto mine. "He got you, Tatum," she said, taking a sip. "I heard the whole thing." "Megan, come on," I pleaded. I walked over to her, trying to use my charm. "Tell him he's being an idiot. I can't do that. I'd look like a linebacker in a tutu. It's insulting to women everywhere." Megan looked me up and down. She didn't laugh. She studied me. It was a clinical look, like a sculptor looking at a block of clay. It made me squirm. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other. "Actually," she said thoughtfully, "you have decent bone structure. If we contoured the jaw, hit the hairline, Megan," I gasped, "you're supposed to be on my side." She walked into the room and set her mug on the table, right next to the pile of chips I had just lost. She looked at Derek, then back at me. "If he does it," Megan said to Derek, "he's not doing it as a joke. I'm not letting him walk out of here looking like a clown. That's tacky." She turned to me. Her expression was suddenly intense. "If you do this, Tatum, you do it right. No hairy legs, no half-assed makeup. You let me handle it." I looked at the two of them. Derek was smirking, waiting for me to fold. Megan was challenging me, her chin raised. My mind was racing. "Run!" It screamed. "Just leave, get in your car and drive home." But I couldn't. I had never backed down from a bet in my life. It was a stupid, macho pride thing. I know, but if I walked away now, I'd never hear the end of it. Every time we played poker, every time we grabbed a beer, Derek would bring it up. "Remember when Tatum ran away?" I took a deep breath. The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. "One night," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "One night," Derek agreed, his eyes gleaming with victory. "And Megan does everything?" I asked, looking at her. "I don't know how to, buy that stuff." "I'll handle the shopping. I'll handle the prep," Megan said. She crossed her arms. "But you have to submit to the process. No complaining. No, this is too tight. No, I feel stupid. You are my canvas." Submit. The word made my skin prickle. I looked down at my hands. They were large, square, masculine hands. I tried to imagine them with painted nails. I tried to imagine my legs, smooth and hairless. A shiver ran down my spine, not of cold, but of something else, something weirdly electric. "Fine," I grunted. I grabbed my car keys off the table. "Halloween is in 3 days. Do your worst." "Oh, I will," Megan said. A small mysterious smile played on her lips. "Be here at 2:00 p.m. on Saturday. And Tatum?" I paused at the door, my hand on the knob. "What?" "Don't shave your face until you get here. I need to see exactly what we're working with before we strip it all away." I walked out into the rainy Chicago night. The cold air hit my face, but it didn't cool down the burning in my cheeks. I got into my car and sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The rain drummed on the roof. Thrum, thrum, thrum. "I am an idiot," I whispered to the empty car. "I am such an idiot." I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark eyes up, a side stubble, a guy, just a normal guy. In 3 days, that reflection wouldn't be there anymore. I started the engine, blasting the heat to stop my shivering, but as I drove home, watching the city lights blur in the rain, a terrifying thought crept into the back of my mind. It wasn't just fear of humiliation. It was curiosity. And that scared me more than anything. The first thing that hit me when I walked into Megan's bedroom wasn't the sight of the clothes. It was the smell. It smelled like lavender, burnt hairspray, and something powdery and sweet. It was an aggressively feminine scent, a sensory wall that I had to push through just to enter the room. "Strip," Megan said. She didn't look up. She was organizing an army of bottles and brushes on her vanity table. The glass surface was already covered in powders and tubes that looked like surgical instruments. "Hello to you too," I muttered, closing the door behind me. My heart was doing that nervous flutter again, like a trapped bird. "Do I get a glass of wine first, or maybe a blindfold?" "Bathroom is to your left," she said, pointing with a makeup brush. "Here's a fresh razor and a can of shaving cream. Don't come out until you're smooth. Everywhere below the neck. Tatum, I mean it." I took the razor. It was pink. Of course it was pink. Standing in Megan's pristine white bathroom, under the unforgiving glare of the vanity lights, I looked at myself in the mirror. Just a guy in boxer briefs, hairy chest, hairy legs. I looked like a rug. I turned on the shower, letting the steam fill the room, and began the demolition. The sound of the razor scraping against my skin was loud in the small tiled room. Scritch. Scritch. Clumps of dark hair swirled down the drain. It took forever. The razor kept clogging. I nicked my shin a bloom of bright red blood against the white foam and cursed loudly. But as I rinsed off, a strange sensation washed over me. I ran my hand down my thigh. It was alien, slippery. My skin felt raw and incredibly sensitive, like I had peeled off a layer of armor I didn't know I was wearing. The air from the vent hit my legs, and for the first time in 23 years, I felt the cold directly on my skin. It made me shiver, a full-body shudder that started at my ankles and went right up to my neck. I wrapped a towel around my waist and stepped back into the bedroom. "Done," I announced, feeling exposed. Megan spun around in her swivel chair. She eyed my legs critically. "Not bad. You missed a patch on your left knee, but the tights will hide it. Sit." She pointed to the chair in front of the vanity. I sat down. The lights around the mirror were blinding. I squinted, trying to see my reflection. But Megan immediately pinned a cape around my neck, trapping my arms. "Don't move," she commanded. "And don't talk. If you talk, I'll mess up the eyeliner, and you'll look like a raccoon." She started with something cold and wet. "Primer," she whispered, her fingers moving quickly over my face. Then came the foundation. She used a damp sponge, bouncing it rhythmically against my skin. Tap, 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 tap. It felt heavy, like a mask being painted on. I watched in the mirror as my 5 o'clock shadow disappeared under a layer of beige paste. My jawline, usually sharp and defined, softened. "Look up," she ordered. I tilted my head back. She came at my eye with a pencil. "Megan, don't... Shh, don't blink." My eye watered. My instincts screamed at me to pull away, to defend myself, but I forced my muscles to freeze. I felt the pencil drag across my waterline. It tickled and stung at the same time. "Good," she murmured, stepping back to inspect her work. "Now, contouring, we need to hide that chin." For the next 45 minutes, I ceased to be a person. I was an object. I was a project. I watched, mesmerized and horrified, as my face changed. She darkened the sides of my nose, making it look thinner. She highlighted my cheekbones, making them pop. She glued false eyelashes onto my lids, which felt like having heavy spiders sitting on my eyes. And suddenly, when I blinked, I felt a draft. "Okay," Megan said, putting down a tube of lipstick. "Face is done. Don't touch it. Now, the body." She threw a pile of fabric at me. "Put these on the thought in this order: panties, by hip pads, tights, dress." I held up the first item. It was a pair of control-top panties. Hip pads, really. "You have the hips of a teenage boy. Tatum, we need to create curves," Megan said matter-of-factly, as if we were discussing architecture instead of my body. "Now go, put them on." I retreated to the bathroom again, clutching the bundle of synthetic fabrics like a bomb that might go off. Getting into the foundations was a physical battle I wasn't prepared for. The hip pads were strange, spongy foam inserts that slid into pockets in the panties when I pulled them up. The sensation was bizarre, suddenly, my narrow, straight hips felt wide, heavy. I ran my hands over my sides and felt a phantom shape that wasn't mine. Then came the tights. "Be careful with your nails," Megan shouted through the door. "Don't snag them." I sat on the edge of the toilet lid, breathing hard. I rolled the black nylon down to the toe, stuck my foot in, and began the slow, torturous process of pulling them up. Swish! Swish! The sound of the fabric against my shaved legs was deafening in the small room. They were tight, incredibly tight. As I yanked the waistband up to my navel, I felt contained. That's the only word for it. My legs were pressed together, encased in a sheer, dark film. I stood up and looked down. My hairy, scarred knees were gone. In their place were smooth, dark, shapely contours. I opened the door and shuffled out. I felt ridiculous, like a half-finished mannequin. "Good," Megan nodded, circling me. "Now, the dress." She held it up. It was a black cocktail dress, knee-length, with an off-the-shoulder neckline. The fabric looked soft, like velvet or high-end rayon. "Arms up," she commanded. I raised my arms, and the dress slid down over my head. It smelled like new clothes, that chemical. Crisp scent. It settled over my shoulders, then caught on my waist. "Suck it in," Megan said, stepping behind me. I inhaled sharply. I felt her cold fingers brush against my spine, sending a jolt of electricity through me. Then, the sound of the zipper, zip. The dress cinched me in. It hugged the fake hips, hugged my chest, hugged my waist. It forced me to stand straighter. I couldn't slouch even if I wanted to. "Last step," Megan whispered. She picked up the wig from a styrofoam head. It was blonde, a soft, honey blonde with loose waves. She approached me slowly. I closed my eyes. I felt the wig cap stretch over my forehead, tight and secure. Then, the weight of the hair settled on my head. It tickled my neck. Strands fell over my ears, brushing against my cheeks. "Open your eyes, Tatum," Megan said softly. I shook my head. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would rip through the black dress. "I can't. I'm going to look like a monster." "Open them." I took a shaky breath and opened my eyes. Megan had spun the chair around, so I was facing the full-length mirror on the back of her door. I stared. The person in the mirror stared back. My brain short-circuited. I was looking for Tatum. I was looking for the guy who plays poker, drinks cheap beer, and has a scar on his chin from a bicycle accident in 3rd grade. He wasn't there. In his place stood a woman. Her eyes were huge and dark, framed by long, sweeping lashes. Her lips were a soft, dusty rose. The blonde hair cascaded around a face that looked softer, narrower. The dress clung to curves that I knew were fake, but looked terrifyingly real. My shoulders, usually broad, looked elegant under the bare neckline of the dress. I raised a hand to touch my face. The woman in the mirror raised a manicured hand. "Holy shit," I whispered. My voice sounded too deep, too rough for the image in the glass. I turned my head to the side. The blonde hair swung with the movement. I looked. Not just convincing. I don't look like a guy in a dress, I stammered, my thoughts spilling out raw and unfiltered. I look like her. Megan came up behind me in the mirror. She rested her chin on my shoulder. We looked like two girlfriends getting ready for a night out. "See?" she said quietly, meeting my eyes in the reflection. "I told you." "Derek is going to laugh his ass off," I said, trying to summon my defensive sarcasm. "He's going to die laughing." Megan shook her head slowly. She reached out and adjusted a stray lock of hair, tucking it behind my ear. Her fingers lingered on my neck for a split second. "He won't laugh," she said, her voice dropped an octave, losing its bossy edge. "I don't see a joke, Tatum. I see beautiful." The word hung in the air, beautiful. Men don't call other men beautiful. We call things cool, or awesome, or solid. Beautiful is a word for sunsets and sports cars and women, not for me. My face flushed hot under the heavy makeup. I felt a confusing mix of shame and a weird, soaring pride. I didn't want to take the dress off. Okay, I said, clearing my throat, trying to find my masculine baritone again. Okay, let's get this over with. Megan smiled, grabbing her purse. One last thing. You can't walk like Tatum anymore. You walk like a linebacker. Tonight, you glide. She threw a pair of black heels at my feet. Put them on, it's showtime. The venue was a renovated warehouse in the West Loop exposed brick. High ceilings, and enough thumping bass to rattle your teeth. It was Derek's company party, which meant the place was packed with people I vaguely knew, all hidden behind masks and costumes. We were in the Uber. Every bump in the road was a crisis. My ankles are going to snap, I hissed, gripping the door handle. These heels are death traps. You're doing fine, Megan said, checking her phone. Just lean back, don't hunch. When the car stopped, panic seized me. This was it. The sidewalk was crowded, real people, strangers. I can't go out there, I said, freezing. Megan, I can't. You lost the bet, she reminded me. Opening the door. Move. I swung my legs out. The cold October wind hit my exposed thighs, or rather, the nylon-covered skin. It was a shock. I placed one heel on the pavement, then the other. I stood up. I wobbled instantly. My center of gravity was all wrong. I flailed my arms and Megan grabbed my elbow to steady me. Smaller steps, she whispered in my ear. One foot in front of the other, like you're walking on a tightrope. Shoulders back, chin up. I took a step. Clack. Then another. Clack. The dress swished around my knees. The feeling was hypnotic. Swish. Clack. Swish. Clack. We reached the entrance. Derek was waiting for us by the bouncer. He was dressed as a pirate lazy costume. Typical Derek. He saw Megan first, waved, and then his eyes slid to me. He did a double take, then a triple take. His jaw actually dropped. No way, he breathed as we got closer. He didn't laugh. He just stared. Tatum. Don't wear it out, I grumbled, crossing my arms over my chest. The gesture felt different now. I was conscious of the slight padding in the bra Megan had made me wear. Dude, Derek said, shaking his head in disbelief. You look, hot. Is that weird to say? That's weird to say, but seriously, I didn't recognize you. Let's get inside before I freeze to death, I said, pushing past him. Inside, the sensory overload was instant. The music was loud. The lights were flashing purple and red. The air smelled of expensive cologne and fog machines. What do we call you? Megan shouted over the music as we made our way to the bar. We can't call you Tatum. Tatum is a guy who plays poker. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling under the disco lights. Tatiana, she declared. You look like a Tatiana. Tatiana, I repeated. The name tasted exotic. Sharp but soft. Fine, whatever. We got drinks. I held my vodka tonic with two hands, trying to hide my large knuckles. I stood by a high-top table, trying to make myself small, waiting for the mockery, waiting for someone to point and scream. Look at the man in the dress. But it didn't happen. A guy in a Superman costume bumped into me. Oh, sorry, sweetheart, he said, steadying me with a hand on my waist. He smiled a genuine, flirtatious smile, and moved on. My breath caught. Sweetheart, he didn't know. He hadn't looked at me and seen a dude losing a bet. He saw a girl. Did you see that? I whispered to Megan. I saw it, she smirked. Shoulders back. Tatiana, own it. I took a long sip of my drink. The alcohol warmed my blood. I shifted my weight, and the dress slid sensuously against my hips. I caught my reflection in a dark window pane nearby. I didn't look like a clown, I looked elegant. "Hey," a voice said. A man I didn't know, dressed as a vampire, leaned in. "Love the dress. It looks great on you." "Thank you," I said automatically. My voice was softer than usual. I didn't force it. It just happened. I found myself tilting my head, smiling a little, a reflex I didn't know I had. "Can I buy you a drink?" he asked. Panic flared again. "I'm with friends, thou say," I said quickly, pointing to Megan and Derek. "Lucky friends!" He winked and walked away. I turned back to the table, my heart racing, but it wasn't the panic of fear anymore. It was the thrill of the deception. "You're enjoying this?" Derek accused. Watching me closely, he looked unsettled, like he didn't know how to treat me. "I'm surviving," I lied. But the truth was, the knot in my stomach was loosening, the tightness of the corset, the pinch of the heels, the itch of the wig, it was fading into the background. I started to move differently. I stopped clomping. I let my hips sway just a little. Following the momentum of the dress, it felt right. It felt fluid. For the first time in my life, I wasn't taking up space aggressively. I was flowing through it. And God help me, I liked it. "I need air," I told Megan suddenly. The realization was too intense. I needed a moment to breathe. "You okay?" she asked, touching my arm. "Yeah," I said, "you just hot. I'll be on the balcony." I turned and walked toward the glass doors leading to the terrace. I walked slowly. Clack, clack, clack. Feeling the eyes of strangers sliding over me, not judging, admiring. I was Tatiana, and Tatiana was walking out to look at the city. The balcony was a sanctuary of cold air and concrete. I stepped out, the heavy glass door sealing the thumping bass of the party behind me. The sudden silence was jarring. I walked to the railing, my heels clicking sharply on the stone clack, and gripped the cold metal. Chicago sprawled out below me, a grid of amber streetlights and red taillights in the rain. I shivered. It was a violent tremor that rattled my teeth. The dress, which felt like a second skin inside the heated club, was now just a thin scrap of fabric against the October wind. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the smooth, unfamiliar texture of my bare shoulders. "You're going to catch pneumonia out here," a voice said. I stiffened. I didn't turn around. I knew that voice. Smart. Smoky. A little cynical. Amanda Reed. She was a project manager at my firm. We'd shared lunches. We'd shared complaints about bosses. I had a low-key crush on her for 6 months. The kind you never act on because you don't want to make work awkward. If she saw me like this, a dude in a dress, as my life was over. "I'm fine," I said, pitching my voice as low as I could without sounding like a cartoon villain. "Just needed air." She moved up beside me. She wasn't wearing a costume, just a sharp black blazer and jeans. She leaned her elbows on the railing, looking out at the city, not at me. "You know," she said casually, "most guys who lose a bet and have to wear a dress, they act like idiots. They hike up the skirt, they spread their legs, they make a joke out of it to protect their ego." My heart hammered against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. "Is that so?" I managed to say. "Yeah," Amanda continued. She turned her head slowly to look at me. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, and uncomfortably direct. "But you're not doing that. You're standing there like you're afraid to break the illusion." She knew. "Amanda." I sighed, dropping the falsetto. My shoulders slumped. "Look, it was a poker game." "Derek." "I know it's you, Tatum," she interrupted softly. I flinched. Hearing my name while standing there in a blonde wig and fake eyelashes felt like a physical slap. I felt naked, exposed. "How?" I asked miserably. "The makeup? The hair?" "You rub the back of your neck when you're stressed," she said, pointing to my hand. "Same spot. Every time." I yanked my hand down. So, go ahead, I muttered, staring at the traffic below. Laugh. Take a picture. Send it to the Slack channel. Amanda didn't laugh. Instead, she reached out. Her hand was warm. She touched the strap of my dress that had slipped slightly down my arm. Her fingers brushed my skin, my shaved, powdered skin, and adjusted the fabric, pulling it back onto my shoulder. The touch was electric. It wasn't sexual. Exactly. It was intimate. It was a gesture you give to a woman, not a man. I don't want to laugh, she said. Her voice was quiet, barely audible over the wind. I actually came out here to tell you. You look incredible. I looked at her then. Really looked at her. There was no mockery in her face. Just curiosity. You're lying, I said. I'm not. The dress fits you. The color works. But it's more than that. She stepped closer, invading my personal space. The scent of her perfume vanilla and something spicy filled my nose. You're softer. Tatum, usually, you're so guarded. Loud. Tonight, you're listening. You're moving like you care about how you take up space. I'm just trying not to trip in these heels. I deflected, a nervous chuckle escaping me. Is that all? She locked eyes with me. The question hung between us, heavy and dangerous. Is that all? My brain screamed at me to lie, to say yes. This is hell. I hate this. I can't wait to burn this wig. But the words wouldn't come. I looked down at my hands on the railing, manicured, elegant. I thought about the guy in the vampire costume buying me a drink. I thought about the sway of the skirt against my legs. No, I whispered. The truth felt like vomiting. No, that's not all. I took a shaky breath. I feel relieved. Is that crazy? I feel like I'm usually wearing a heavy coat, and tonight I took it off. It scares me, I added, my voice cracking. It scares the shit out of me. Amanda smiled. It was a sad, sweet smile. She reached up and tucked a stray strand of the blonde wig behind my ear. Her fingers lingered on my cheek. It's okay to be scared, she said. Identity isn't a straight line. Tatum, sometimes it's a circle, sometimes it's a mess. I'm not gay. I blurted out. I like women. I know, she said. She didn't pull her hand away. Who you go to bed with has nothing to do with who you go to bed as. The sentence hit me like a truck. Who you go to bed as? I don't know what this means, I confessed, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes, threatening to ruin Megan's perfect eyeliner. You don't have to know tonight, Amanda said firmly. Tonight, you're Tatiana, and Tatiana is shivering. She took off her blazer before I could protest. She draped it over my shoulders. Come on, she said. Let's go back inside. I'll buy you a drink. And if anyone gives you shit, I will personally fire them. I pulled her blazer tight around me. It smelled like her. Okay, I said. We walked back toward the door. I didn't stumble. I walked beside her, the click of my heels syncing with the beat of the music, walking back into the light, not as a joke, but as something else. Waking up was a car crash of reality. Sunlight stabbed through the blinds of my apartment. My mouth tasted like stale vodka and regret. I rolled over, groaning, and my hand hit something on the floor. It was the wig. It lay there like a dead animal on my carpet. Next to it, one black high heel. I sat up, rubbing my face. My skin felt gritty. I stumbled to the bathroom and flicked on the light. The face in the mirror was a disaster. Smudged black raccoon circles around my eyes where I hadn't scrubbed the eyeliner off properly. Traces of foundation trapped in the pores of my nose. But the worst part wasn't the mess. The worst part was seeing Tatum coming back. The stubble was already pushing through, rough and grey against the skin. The jaw looked square and hard again. The magic was gone. The soft, elegant creature from the mirror last night had evaporated, leaving this hungover, hairy dude in boxer briefs. I turned on the faucet and splashed freezing water on my face. I scrubbed until my skin was red and raw, trying to wash Tatiana away. It was just a bet. I told myself, it's over. You won. You did it. I grabbed a trash bag. I marched into the bedroom and started gathering the evidence. The dress, the hip pads, the tights with a run in the knee. I shoved them all into the black plastic sack. I tied the knot. Tight. I walked to the front door to take it to the dumpster. My hand hovered over the knob. I stood there for a full minute. My heart was doing that weird flutter again. Who you go to bed as? Damn it, I hissed. I turned around. I walked to the back of my closet, pushed aside my suits and gym bags, and shoved the black trash bag into the deepest, darkest corner. I didn't throw it out. I buried it. The next week was a blur of overcompensation. I went to the gym every day. I lifted heavier weights. I grunted. I grew my beard out, hiding that soft jawline under a thicket of dark hair. I was Tatum the man, Tatum the bro. But my skin felt wrong. My clothes, my jeans, my flannel shirts felt abrasive, rough. They felt like costumes. And then there was Amanda. I avoided her at work for 3 days. I ducked into stairwells when I saw her coming. I ate lunch at my desk. On Thursday, she cornered me in the break room. "You're hiding," she said, leaning against the coffee machine. "I'm busy," I lied, stirring my coffee aggressively. "You're an idiot," she countered. "Coffee, Saturday, my place, 10 a.m. Amanda, I'm not asking, Tatum." Saturday morning, I stood outside her apartment door. I was wearing my most masculine leather jacket. I knocked. She opened the door wearing yoga pants and an oversized sun sweater. Her apartment was cozy, full of books and plants. "Shoes off," she said. We sat on her couch with mugs of coffee. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy with things unsaid. "Did you throw it away?" she asked suddenly. I froze. "Throw what away?" "The dress." I looked into my coffee cup. "No." "Good." She set her mug down and reached for a small basket on the table. She pulled out a bottle of nail polish. "I was doing my nails," she said casually. "Want to try?" "Amanda, I can't have painted nails at work. I'm a consultant." "It's clear matte," she said, shaking the bottle. The little metal ball inside clicked rhythmically. "No shine, no color, just smooth. Nobody will see it but you." She held the bottle out, a challenge, a lifeline. "Nobody will see it but you." My heart raced. It was such a small thing, a tiny, invisible layer of femininity. I slowly extended my hand. My fingers were trembling. Amanda took my hand in hers. Her grip was firm. She unscrewed the cap and brushed the cold, wet lacquer onto my thumb. I watched, mesmerized. It looked clean. It looked cared for. As the cold liquid dried on my nails, I felt a knot in my chest loosen, a knot I hadn't realized I'd been carrying all week. I wasn't in a dress. I wasn't Tatiana. But sitting there, letting a woman paint my nails on a rainy Saturday morning, I felt peace. "See," she whispered, blowing gently on my fingers to dry them. "The world didn't end." "No," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "It didn't." I looked up at her. "What do we do now?" Amanda capped the bottle. "Now," she smiled, "we figure out who you are." Winter in Chicago is brutal. It's a physical assault wind that cuts through wool coats, grey skies that press down on the skyscrapers like a heavy iron lid. But inside my apartment, it was warm. It was February, 4 months since the Halloween party. The black trash bag was gone. In its place was a locked drawer in my dresser. And inside that drawer wasn't a costume. It was a wardrobe. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror. The heavy velvet curtains were drawn tight to block out the world. I wasn't wearing the flashy cocktail dress from Halloween. I was wearing a soft, oversized cashmere sweater in a pale cream color and a pair of black leggings. My feet were bare on the carpet. My nails clear matte. Thanks to Amanda looked neat. I looked at my reflection. I didn't see a drag queen. I didn't see a joke. I saw a person who looked rested. When I was Tatum wearing the suits, the stiff collars, the heavy brogues, my jaw was always clenched. My shoulders were always up by my ears. I walked through the world like I was bracing for a fight. But as Tatiana, even if I was just Tatiana in leggings watching Netflix, my shoulders dropped. My breath went deeper into my lungs. The realization hit me while I was simply folding laundry. I was holding one of my Tatum dress shirts, a stiff blue Oxford, and a wave of nausea rolled over me. I didn't want to put it on tomorrow. I didn't want to perform the guy nod at the water cooler. I didn't want to lower my voice. I dropped the shirt on the bed. I can't do this anymore, I whispered to the empty room. I grabbed my phone. My thumb hovered over Amanda's name. We had been inseparable for months. Shopping trips disguised as buying gifts for my sister. Movie nights where I'd wear gender-neutral loungewear. She was my anchor. But I hadn't told her the whole truth. Not really. I texted her. Can I come over? I need to say something. She replied instantly, door is unlocked. 20 minutes later, I was sitting on Amanda's plush beige sofa. I had changed back into boy mode jeans, hoodie, sneakers, but I felt like I was wearing a suit of armor made of lead. Amanda poured 2 glasses of red wine. She handed me one and sat down on the opposite end of the couch, tucking her legs under her. You're vibrating, she noted, sipping her wine. Spit it out. I stared at the dark red liquid swirling in the glass. I bought a wig. I blurted out. A real one, not a Halloween one. It cost $300. It has a lace front. Amanda didn't blink. Okay, is it a good color? Amanda, listen to me, I said, my voice rising. I set the wine down on the coffee table because my hands were shaking too hard to hold it. I'm not just exploring. I'm not just having fun. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, head in my hands. I wake up in the morning, and I dread being him. I confessed. The words felt like jagged stones coming out of my throat. I put on the suit, and I feel like I'm putting on a costume. But when I'm her, when I'm Tatiana, I feel real. I feel like the static in my head finally stops. The silence in the room was deafening. The radiator hissed in the corner. I choked on the word. I think Tatiana isn't a character. Amanda. I think she's me. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the rejection, waiting for her to say, okay, that's too far. That's weird. I can't deal with that. Instead, I felt the cushion depress next to me. Amanda's hand rested on my back. She rubbed in slow, soothing circles. I know, she said softly. My head snapped up. You know, Tatum, I've watched you for 4 months, she said, a gentle smile playing on her lips. I've seen how you look at clothes in windows. I've seen how you touch your face when you think no one is looking. You glow when you talk about her. You disappear when you talk about him. I don't know what to call it, I whispered. Am I trans? Am I gender fluid? Am I just confused? You don't have to label it tonight, she said firmly. Labels are for soup cans. You are a person. She took my hand. But you need to talk to someone who knows more than I do, a professional, not to fix you, but to help you map this out. Therapy. I recoiled slightly. That sounds serious. It is serious, that she said. This is your life, and you deserve to be happy in it. The waiting room of Dr. Aris Thorne was beige, aggressively beige. I sat on the edge of the chair, bouncing my leg. Tap, tap, tap. I was wearing my work clothes, but underneath my suit pants. I was wearing women's silk underwear. It was a secret rebellion, a tiny anchor to reality. The door opened. Dr. Thorne was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and silver hair. Tatum. I walked in. I sat on the couch. I looked at the box of tissues on the table. So, she said, opening a notebook. What brings you here? I took a deep breath. I thought about the poker game. I thought about the first time I saw myself in the mirror with Megan. I thought about the peace I felt in the cashmere sweater. I lost a bet. I started. And I think it saved my life. For the next hour, I vomited words. I told her about the dysphoria I hadn't realized was dysphoria, the hatred of my body hair, the disconnection from my reflection, the envy I felt looking at women on the street. When I was done, I was exhausted. I slumped back in the chair. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Thorne said. She closed her notebook. How does it feel to say it out loud? Terrifying, I admitted, but light. Tatum, she asked carefully. In this room, how would you like me to refer to you? What name feels right? My heart skipped a beat. Tatum is fine, I said automatically. Then I paused. I looked at the window. Actually, my voice trembled. Could we try? Tatiana. Dr. Fouas, Moa de Sa. Dr. Thorne smiled. Nice to meet you, Lisa. Tatiana. The name hung in the air. It didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like a greeting. A warmth spread through my chest, starting at my heart and radiating out to my fingertips. It was better than the winning hand at poker. It was better than vodka. It was euphoria. 2 weeks later, I was back at Amanda's. We were cooking dinner. I was chopping vegetables. I was wearing a pair of women's jeans. I had finally built up the courage to buy high-waisted, stretchy, infinitely more comfortable than men's denim and a fitted t-shirt. I struggled with a jar of pasta sauce. My hands were slippery. Here, Amanda said, taking the jar. She popped the lid with a satisfying pop. She poured the sauce into the pan. You know, she said casually, stirring the sauce, my sister is coming to town next month. We're going to that jazz club downtown. Oh, I said, focusing on the onions. That sounds fun. I was thinking, she continued, not looking at me. You should come. She'd love to meet you. I froze, the knife hovering over a slice of red pepper. Meet me. You mean, meet Tatum. Amanda turned around. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. Her eyes were serious. I told her I'm seeing someone, she said. My brain short-circuited, seeing someone. And, Amanda continued, I told her she is smart, funny, and has better legs than I do. The pronoun landed like a feather, but it hit with the force of a hammer. Gee. She wasn't talking about a friend. She wasn't talking about a distinct Tatiana persona. She was talking about me. The whole me. You told her, I stammered. You told her I'm a girl. I told her I'm dating a woman named Tatiana, Amanda corrected. Unless I read the signals wrong, are we not dating because we hold hands a lot for just friends? I dropped the knife. It clattered on the cutting board. Heat rushed to my face, not shame, not embarrassment, just pure, unadulterated joy. You're okay with that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Being seen with a trans woman. The label slipped out. I finally said it. Trans woman. Amanda walked over to me. She wrapped her arms around my waist. She looked up at me. I was still taller than her, even without heels, but I felt small in her arms. Safe. Tatum. Tatiana. She whispered. I like you. I don't care about the packaging, but I really like the woman you're becoming. She's much happier than the guy I used to know. I leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't like the hurried, drunken kisses I'd had in my past life as a straight guy. This was soft. It was honest. When we pulled apart, I looked at my reflection in the dark window of the kitchen. I saw the high-waisted jeans. I saw the softer posture. I saw the happiness in my eyes. "Okay," I said, picking up the knife again. A smile, a real one, broke across my face. "Then I guess Tatiana is going to a jazz club." The decision was made. The wall had crumbled. I wasn't going back. 1 year later. The mirror was the same, but the reflection was finally mine. It was Halloween night again in Chicago, outside. The wind was howling, tearing the last of the autumn leaves from the trees, but inside the master bathroom, it was warm and smelled of lavender mist. I leaned in close to the glass. Tap, tap. I dotted concealer under my eyes. My hands moved with a muscle memory that Tatum never had. Back then, that night in Megan's room, I had been a mannequin, stiff and terrified, letting someone else paint a face on me. Now this was just my Tuesday night routine. I picked up the mascara wand. I didn't flinch. I swept it up my lashes, blinking slowly to set the curl. "Babe," a voice called from the bedroom. "Are you almost ready? The Uber is 5 minutes out." "Coming," I called back. My voice was higher now naturally. Not forced. Not falsetto. Just lighter. Months of vocal training had stripped away the heavy, chest-rumbling baritone, leaving something that sounded like wind chimes instead of a foghorn. I stepped back to look at the full picture. No hip pads, no corset crushing my ribs. The curves under my silk emerald green slip dress were mine softened by 12 months of estrogen. The little blue pills that sat on my nightstand like holy sacraments. My hair, a dark chestnut bob, brushed against my jawline. It wasn't a wig. If I pulled it, it hurt. I took a deep breath. I didn't feel the adrenaline spike of fear. I felt the calm hum of existence. I walked out into the bedroom. Amanda was there, adjusting her cufflinks. She looked sharp in a charcoal suit she hated dresses. Ironically enough. She looked up, her eyes went wide, then softened into that look that still made my knees weak. "Wow," she breathed. "Tatiana, you look, like I lost a bet," I teased, grabbing my clutch. "No," she said, walking over and kissing my forehead. "You look like you won the lottery." The restaurant was a dimly lit steakhouse in the Loop dark wood, white tablecloths, the clinking of expensive silverware. My heart gave a small, traitorous thud as we followed the hostess to the back booth. We were meeting them. Derek and Megan. I hadn't seen Derek in 6 months. We'd texted awkward, short messages. Happy birthday. Saw the Bulls won. He knew about the transition. He knew the name Tatiana. But he hadn't seen her. Not in the flesh. Not since that night he thought I was just playing a character. As we rounded the corner, I saw them. Megan waved immediately, her face lighting up. Derek was sitting next to her, looking at a menu. He looked the same stubble. Slightly messy hair, wearing a button-down that was untucked. He looked up. For 3 seconds. Time stopped. I stood there, clutching Amanda's hand. I waited for the double take. I waited for the bro smirk. I waited for him to look for the guy he used to play poker with. But Derek didn't flinch. He didn't look confused. He stood up. He smiled a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. "Tatiana," he said. He didn't offer a handshake. He opened his arms. I stepped into the hug. It was firm, brotherly. He smelled like Old Spice and cigarettes, a smell that reminded me of a past life. "It's good to see you," he mumbled into my hair. "Really good." "You too, Derek," I said, my voice steady. We sat down. The tension that I had built up in my head evaporated instantly, replaced by the mundane comfort of old friends. "Okay," Megan said, pointing a breadstick at me. "First of all, that dress color is unfair. You're stealing the spotlight, again." I laughed. I learned from the best. "So," Derek said, pouring wine into the glasses. He looked at me across the candle flame. 1 year exactly. To the day. To the day. I nodded. "I've been thinking about that poker hand," Derek said. He spun the stem of his wine glass. 4 fives versus kings full. You crushed me, I reminded him. You took all my money. I did, he agreed. Then he looked me dead in the eye. But I think that was the worst bluff I ever played. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Derek smirked. I didn't have 4 fives. Tati, I had 3. The 4th card was a 3 of clubs. I misread it. The table went silent. You're lying, I gasped. You showed the cards. I flashed them. He corrected. You were so busy panicking about losing the money, you didn't check the suits. I cheated. Accidentally. Maybe, but I cheated. I stared at him, my mouth hung open. So, I started slowly. I didn't actually lose. Technically, no? Derek shrugged. You won the hand. You should have taken the pot. You never should have worn the dress. He leaned back, looking at the woman sitting across from him, confident, glowing, holding Amanda's hand. But, Derek added softly, looking at you now, I think you won anyway. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes, my waterproof mascara holding strong. I thought about the fear, the nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was crazy, the terror of walking onto that balcony, the relief of the nail polish, the joy of the first time a stranger called me miss. I looked at the wine glass. I looked at Amanda, who was squeezing my hand under the table. I looked at my own reflection in the darkened window of the restaurant. Tatum, the poker player, would have been furious about losing on a bluff. But Tatiana... I picked up my glass. You're right, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I would have taken the money. I would have bought a new TV. And I would have been miserable for the rest of my life. I raised the glass high. To the 4 fives, I said, and to the best bad beat of my life. Derek clinked his glass against mine. To Tatiana. To Tatiana, everyone echoed. I took a sip of the wine. It was rich and complex. Outside, the Chicago wind was still howling, bitter and cold, but in here, in this skin, in this life, I had never been warmer. The game was over. I had finally folded the hand I was dealt at birth, and drawn the cards I was meant to hold all along. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't bluffing.